Thank you for joining me today. My name's Sam Goldsmith. I'm Business Development Manager here at PTFS Europe. And in this webinar, I hope to cover why open source is the right choice for libraries and archives with regards to sustainability and why we find it so important here to our values at PTFS Europe. So, as a definition, there are actually three pillars of global sustainability. And sustainability is a movement that believes it is vital to take action to preserve the health of our planet and its denizens, including humanity. The first of the pillars is social sustainability, which is vital because a lack of equity causes disruption, unrest, and ultimately war. It's important to invest in global health, education, and energy to ensure resource security for everyone. Economic is the next. It's similar and adheres to the belief that there are enough resources in the world for everyone to have a good standard of living. Environmental is, of course, the aspect we tend to think of when we think of sustainability, which are the actions needed to preserve our world and its biodiversity. Interesting how many of these aims currently tend to clash with trends in politics, but that's an entirely different webinar that we don't have time for today. So no prizes for guessing where the PTFS Europe core values came from or were inspired by. These values really do underpin any decisions we make about the future of the company, though. We are very proud to be socially equitable. Our open source solutions can be used by the tiniest library, which is unfunded and is on the opposite side of the globe. All our developments that we make are shared back to the community. We're economically responsible. Our prices are based on the size of server you will need and the support impacts of that support. We never just go for whatever that sector can bear. We have no shareholders and we are happy to make a small profit each year. Any excess goes to our charitable donations, staff bonuses, and reinvesting in new staff and infrastructure. And finally, environmental. This is the focus of today's webinar, but we will touch on the other ethical values too. So let's talk about open source in general and its impact on sustainability. So how do the principles apply to open source? And why does PTFS Europe only work with open source? Open source software is the backbone of much of the modern digital world. You use open source every day, even if you weren't aware of it. It powers everything from operating systems and web servers to cloud infrastructure and scientific research tools. Open source, of course, is free to download, use, and adapt. Open source projects are built on transparency and openness. They also aspire to be inherently sustainable and can be used to create positive technologies that do not harm the environment. With it being free to use, there is inherent social equity too in open source. The community of users help drive its development, and this is not dependent on any economic concerns. Most support companies like ourselves that work with open source also balance their development time between funded and voluntary developments. This is the case with us, where at least 50% of development time is paid for by ourselves. In terms of social equity and sustainability, we work to foster open source as to be an active community of users. We get together user groups and we share best practice via our videos, discussions, webinars, and events. We also are active in the Koha and Aspen world and are often asked to present at their global events. All of this is paying back to the community and helps it to thrive. In the IT industry, open source also supports the notion that the more people are working on the project, the better it will eventually become, making this way of working perfect for collaboration, transparency, and inclusivity. So let's talk about software production. It always carries an environmental impact, and most of that is in the use of resources. Creating software requires energy for coding, server operation, and device manufacturing. Closed source software often leads to repetitive development because each company or individual is creating the same functionalities over and over again. In contrast, open source allows these efforts to be combined. The ability to reutilize and modify existing code bases reduces the development time and the resource expenditure significantly. The cooperative spirit of open source is that it allows for a constant iterative process where existing software is improved rather than replaced. The process increases software lifespan, reduces obsolescence, and lessens the demand for new programs. This practice translates into less energy required for both software development and for distribution, which reduces the overall impact on resource consumption and energy demand. Because of its community-driven aspect, it allows for improvements that adapt software better to older hardware, which in turn reduces e-waste caused by prematurely having to dispose of functioning machines. The life cycle extension of both software and hardware further strengthens open source's role in promoting digital sustainability. Open source and environmental sustainability rely heavily on motives beyond the financial, such as shared knowledge and continual improvement. There are many individuals who are working for the good of society or communities. PTFS Europe is a net zero carbon company. We have been virtual since inception in 2007, with our 25 staff working from home offices all across the UK, with one of our development team, Pedro, based in the Azores. This is a much more environmentally friendly way of working, without any office overheads or commutes. Now, a little bit more about the connection between sustainability, what we do, and how we do it. I will cover in detail these three main areas: server management, work culture, and open source coding. So, sustainable server management. The main cost economically and to the environment is in the provision of servers. So we only work with companies that have an environmental commitment themselves to carbon neutrality via green energy usage or offsetting, or a combination of both. But these companies also have to match our stringent security requirements. Most of our production servers are hosted with Amazon Web Services, but we also use companies called DigitalOcean and Mythic Beasts, and these are mostly for backups. We are in negotiations with a company called Deep Green, who are a UK-based company that are pioneering data centres that are green energy powered and use the waste heat to warm local pools, homes and community centres. And we hope to offer this to customers as their elected server provider in the near future. But it's not just about the selection of good data centres, it's about being as efficient as possible with that data, what is stored, and the selection of the hardware to do it. For example, we select servers that function efficiently at lower power levels. We ensure there is plenty of room for the customer server needs because we don't want to overload them. And we use solid state disks and cold storage for longer term backups that won't need to be retrieved as often. And these are often in separate locations and with different providers. This all minimises the space used and the power consumption used, as well as ensuring that we keep excellent data for backup and retrieval if the need arises. We also manage the data more effectively than any proprietary systems. Open source is less power hungry and contains much less duplication, meaning a more efficient server load. All our staff work remotely and we use electronic communication as default. The well-being of our staff is massively boosted by offering home working and flexible working hours, but it is hard to overestimate the reduction of costs and environmental impact by not having offices to power and commutes to do. We do, of course, have to physically visit places sometimes. We are part of a worldwide community for our solutions, and being major developers in those solutions, we are often invited to conferences to share best practice and innovations. We meet up with the rest of the team a couple of times a year, and we visit new customers and prospects. But in all travel cases, we prefer public transport first, and if air travel is the only option, we choose providers with offset carbon options. Believe it or not, though, being a small net zero company can actually go against us in tenders. If they are worded in terms of only showing a carbon reduction promise in terms of a monetary value, or they use a calculator that does similar, we cannot compete. A gas-guzzling multinational that promises to close an office or offer a cycle to work scheme will always win with a higher monetary value of carbon cut offered. As a small company, it's very difficult to show a major reduction from the position of near zero. As I touched upon earlier, the collaborative nature of developing in open source means less duplication and a recycling of useful code so that the solutions use less energy. When developments and bug fixing occurs, we ensure the code is as lightweight and efficient as possible using refactoring and optimization. And we use automated testing to ensure the code matches that goal. Open source development is often very swift compared to proprietary software, with the community putting forward and promoting new functionality and even whole new modules. An example of this was the Koha ERM, which was completed in 18 months and immediately was added to the base software at no extra cost. This rarely, if ever, happens in proprietary software. Major developments like this are often lead to a new version, which is then resold to customers, with the previous versions being phased out rapidly with no support, forcing customers to pay again. A little about new innovations, in particular AI, or more accurately, large language models, as there's very little that is intelligent about them. We're always keen to explore new technology and innovation, but we always have to think about the principles of open source too. We are happy to integrate to such systems if people want them, but we would never include something in the solution or code that requires extra payment to make it happen. Being librarians and library-focused people, we also consider the data protection and copyright implications of AI. There are other ethical considerations that we would wrestle with too, such as the large energy cost of such models and the social and economic discrepancies suffered by placing the data centres in underprivileged parts of the world. We are very measured, therefore, in our response to AI. But we are very happy to continually improve our customers' experience and workload with additions and integrations. The pace of these is very swift. In the past 6 months for Koha alone, we have worked with TDNet, which is a discovery platform with an inbuilt AI research helper, to ensure that if it's used in conjunction with Koha and the TDNet is the portal, Koha users can not only search library resources alongside electronic, but they can log into their account and do all the self-service activities you would expect from the Koha OPAC. A Koha support company based in France called Biblibre has a very clever developer who has created a ChatGPT, which is trained on the huge reports shared library. Please go have a look at this report assistant. The QR code on the screen and the URL will find it for you. Some great things about this development are it uses no local data at all, so there are no security and data protection concerns. It's on the free version of ChatGPT, and it works to help library staff to create complex SQL reports for Koha using natural language. But we only ever promote these as an enhancement or an add-on to serve a particular need. Neither are required to make Koha viable as an LMS. So we update and improve our policies and procedures to minimise our impact on the world. We feel that procurement processes within libraries and archives do not always act in the best interests of sustainability, and we try our best to educate and advocate for sustainable procurement. Often the processes end up benefiting polluters, And in these cases, we have always contacted MPs or raised concerns with procurement where we feel it has focused too much on ticking the box for sustainability instead of considering genuine environmental impact. It is also worth noting the trend towards library service platforms, which are marketed as a time saver and easy procurement. But these actually lock in customers to limited choices of providers for reading lists, discoveries, resources, and more. This cannot be a good thing long term. We feel that libraries can only grow and develop when free to choose their various providers to get the best deal. This is why open source is the most sustainable future for libraries, as the integrations are wide and varied and offer the library or archive the ability to add the best match for current and future needs. And of course, as I mentioned in the previous slide, the pace of new technologies and integrations is very swift. An example of a change we made to improve sustainability was to continue to use work phones until they no longer meet security system or operational requirements, rather than when the contract upgrade is available. We always recycle all our old equipment, but this policy reduces the frequency of that recycling. So finally, we really do believe in what we do, that you can do good business while doing good. Our ethical principles and the happiness of our team are more important than profit at all costs. Open source's concept of openness, collaboration, and sharing resonates deeply with the principles of libraries. And that is our only focus: libraries, archives, and open source. We work to let the staff at those institutions worry less about servers and IT and concentrate on providing great and often socially vital services. And everything we endeavour to do to improve our social, economic, and environmental sustainability is, of course, passed on to our customers so that they are also improving their sustainability goals. We hope to continue doing what we are great at and be a viable business at the same time, whilst minimising our impact on the world. I hope you found this webinar useful. There are lots more webinars and videos available at our YouTube. I hope you can subscribe. Look out for our upcoming webinars too. We have an Eventbrite page for registration, and the link can also be found on the events page of our website. Thanks for joining us today.